One of the main topics from this chapter is actually working with parabolas, and we're going to look at equations of parabolas and pretty much how do we find this equation from its graph. So first of all, we want to kind of look at what is graphing form. So the graphing form or vertex form of a parabola is in the form of y equals a times x minus h squared plus k. Now, through your investigations, you should have discovered that the value of k causes the graph to shift up or down. The value of h shifts the graph either left or right. Now, the reason why we use a minus right here is because it kind of works opposite. So, for example, if I had y equals x minus 3 squared, that would shift the graph to the right 3. If I had x plus 5 squared, it would shift the graph to the left 5. So it kind of works opposite. And we want to find our vertex. We figure out what will make this equal 0, and that's going to be x equaling h. And then the y coordinate of the vertex is k. So that's why it's sometimes referred to as vertex form. Now the other component is this letter right out here, this a. We call the a the stretching factor, because that determines how narrow or wide the parabola is. So a acts like as if you grafted onto rubber and you pulled it and stretched it. That's why we call it a stretching factor. Now the technique we use for parabola will work for anything. Same kinds of ideas. You take the general form, how the graph was shifted, and then we're going to solve for a. So you got to locate where the locator point is, and then we use that at another point, and we figure out what a is. So here's an example. So I have a parabola here, and if I look, I can see my vertex is at 1, -5, and it's going to go through this point up here. So since I know my vertex is at 1, -5, it's like taking the graph, I shifted it to the right 1, so I've got to make this x minus 1, and then down 5. So the k value is -5. What I want to do is figure out what a is. So I need another point other than the vertex to plug in. Well, they gave us this point right over here, and that point is at -1, 3. So I'm going to take -1, 3, I'm going to take this point here and plug it into my equation. So y equals 3. I plugged in -1 for x. Now be careful here, we have -2 squared. So I do -2 squared, I'm going to get +4. So I got 4a minus 5, and I'm just going to solve for my a value. So I'm going to add 5, divide by 4. I have a stretching factor of 2. So my final answer is y equals 2 times x minus 1 squared minus 5. Okay, let's look at another example. Okay, so we want to get into this format, the graphing form, and we're told this parabola has a y-intercept at 0, -6. So I look at my graph. I can see the vertex is at -3, +1. I plug it into my equation. So y equals a times x plus 3 squared plus 1. Yeah, remember it's the opposite for the x shift, the shift going back and forth. Now I plug in a point. Well, my point I'm going to plug in is this 0, -6. So y is -6 when x equals 0. Simplifying this, 0 plus 3 gives me 3. 3 squared is 9. So I got 9a plus 1. Solving this, I end up getting a is -9/7. It's -7/9. And then we simply plug in.